Now, what I wanted to try to share here, one of the things that we've been able to do very recently, we went from sanding with rougher grades of paper, basically 1500, 2000. We now sand all the final clear with 2500. Now, one of the things, and I've experimented over and over and over again to try to make this the most usable technology anyway. But the other day I had time, I sanded the whole part. Basically the whole tank has been sanded. All the flaws have been taken out of it. It's ready to go, 2500 paper. Now, what that's allowed me to do is skip a couple of steps. And this is really, I think, an important thing for me anyway. Now, I've always started with, and I have this marked because the label peeled off. If you buy these three products, I'm not sure, 4CR, there's three different numbers on them. And basically, if you buy all three of these, it's over $100. At least where we buy it anyway. And the idea of this is when you sand with rougher grits, the way this is supposed to work, and of course you keep a dedicated pad. You don't mix and match the pad or start putting the rough on the smooth. But I wanted to share this because this is something, even if you just want to take an old 55 Chevy and buff it out, this works. The purpose of this, the 80-20, the roughest of the compounds, in the olden days, I'm saying the olden days was probably last year, the idea was it got out the sanding scratches from 1500. So as soon as you got the sanding scratches out, micro scratches, you were done with that. Then what would happen is you would use this, how convenient that the numbers go in order, the 80-21, this is a medium cut. Notice I don't have thing because I've been using it. Now, the purpose of this would then put a nice high gloss on everything, but it was so glossy sometimes, or it would in some way leave holograms. And then you had this, the last, which is ultra fine, which was supposed to get out holograms and polish to a higher luster. I never found that really to be totally true. Now, many of my friends that do custom cars have told me, oh, you can skip this step, you can skip that step, you can do this, you can do that. And you know why that's totally true? Because every finishing, if you finish in a cold weather climate and you use a lot of clear, basically that's what we've done here, that clear is going to stay soft for quite a long time. And it always requires leaving it sit in a warm place for, God knows, every shop is different. If you have a real shop with heat and yeah, of course, none of this applies. This is basically trying to share information for somebody that's working at home or somebody that's working without a gigantic budget with spray booths and $100 spray guns and everything. We try to do it because this is basically a hobby. We're not doing this to make money or whatever, to compete with Chip Foose. That would be a close contest. But anyway, what I've been able to do, and I can, this is why I wanted to pass this on. In the course of doing this bike, this project, what I found to be totally true is I could skip those two steps. I only need the medium cut, and by the way, this number is 8021, 4CR, CR4, whatever this is. It's made in Germany, I think. Achtung, yeah, you better buy this. Yeah, I know, made in Germany. Can you imagine? But anyway, now I found this to be totally true. If you use way too much of this stuff, there's no advantage. And it's relatively expensive. You also need a microfiber. I wanted to show this because here's what happened. Just a couple of days ago, maybe 3 or 4 days ago, I was doing some small parts. By the way, let me show one little part here. We made this part recently. I made a little carbon fiber cover. This is one of the fairing parts. I made a piece of carbon fiber, and I know we have it on video, but that's basically after a couple of coats of clear and buffed out, sanded and buffed out. Of course, everything we do is sanded and buffed out, or why bother doing it? I'm not sure everybody would agree with that. But anyway, what I wanted to show is you don't want to take this. This pad now is kind of dry relative to it's been sitting for 2 or 3 days. You got to get this pad wet. Before I can go on to the next step, And where it needs to be wet is out at the edge. The middle kind of takes care of itself. The initial thing, I don't want to put scratches in. And I'm afraid, of course, you could use a new pad every time. I take the pad and at some point in time put it in the washing machine, use it 2 or 3 times and throw it away. They are not that expensive, but I try to get that pad good and soaked. Now in the old days, of course, we used to buff out everything by hand. Since we have these $15 tools from Harbor Freight, I doubt that anybody would want to buff anything out by hand. But if I show one little spot, this is my, I think, going to be my system from this point in time on, unless something changes, or, and I don't know what'll change, is I have everything of my final clear, totally sanded out flat, all the spots removed, and then I'm going to take my, what number is this? Does he have this memory? You think? ShamWow! Yeah, we're going to do Sham. No, it's 80/21. And by the way, each one of these is about $35, $40. So I really don't like to waste it. I just want to spread this around a little bit. And I think if you see this in real life, I try to do things without camera cuts and trick photography and Photoshop. I mean, the problem is that we live in a world where almost nothing is real, and I don't have the technology to do any Photoshop anyway, so whatever you see is kind of real. The reason I'm doing a giant area like this, I just want to spread the material around. And what I wanted to do is just show, I'll just do this little spot up here, because what I'll do is I'll have a cup of coffee and I'm just going to, a lot of times I have my friends over here and we can chit chat and we can, whatever, watch television mostly, watch football games, watch Valentino Rossi, whatever. Now when I get to the point, now this is going to stay wet for quite a while because I put a lot of material on. From this point on I'll put a lot less. And you could also do this, you could do this to your 20-year-old Norton or a 50-year-old Norton or whatever it is. It doesn't even matter. And by the way, on that show Naked Speed that's on the Speed Channel right now, they did a cool Norton. I'm sure Tony's all excited about seeing that Norton. I'm excited about it. What am I talking about? A really nice Norton. I'd like to find out, that guy is in the New York area. I'd like to find out where his shop is and go up and visit him and show him some of the stuff that we do. Maybe Jose can figure out where that is. Jose likes to lead these big rides off into the, to God knows where. Just ask Glenn about that. Anyway, now the 2 tricks that I like to keep in mind here, I don't want to press so hard that the machine slows down, because all it does, it just burns up the machine. All the bushings and bearings, and you know, when you have a $15 machine, this isn't exactly German engineering here. But anyway, now at some point in time, this is the part to remember, at some point in time, you do not see the compound. It kind of dries out, goes into the ozone layer, creates global warming, whatever it does. So I try to, if you see what I'm doing, I'm staying in one spot. I'm not going around the whole tank, but even if you do, I remember Glenn doing his Ducati this way, and I remember Lauren doing some of her polish. In fact, Lauren, you still owe me a buffer. You burned out my buffer last year. Got a reminder. I don't think she watches these videos anyway, so. Anyway. We do have a unique circle of friends that I seem to enjoy all the interaction with them. We actually enjoy working on bikes together here in my shop and other places, and I guess that's part of the fun. Now what I wanted to do, I wanted to show that this compound eventually just disappears. And if you keep moving this around, doesn't take long. Now you really do start the buffing that's really going to add a nice gloss at the point there's no more compound. When you see white compound on there, you're really not doing much. You're just slogging it around. But once this dries to this point, now I can slow down just a little bit, and it's going to start leaving a really nice gloss that I don't know if it even comes out in these videos, because we don't have that ability to trick the camera here or whatever. But now let's just pretend we had an old Motor Guzzi, for instance. I won't mention any names, but one of my friends collects old Motor Guzzis, and he said to me, "Wendy, could you make this bike look 100% better in about an hour for almost no money?" Well, the thing you see on every bike, every person there sees the paint job. It's like the face of the motorcycle, and doing this once a year, just cleaning up the paint, especially right after a winter, getting rid of the oxidation. And believe me, see, I could do this without looking at it. You can do this in your sleep. You can do this. I watched Glenn out there for many, many hours with the Ducati. When he got it, it was pretty rough, and it's really, I think it's pretty nice right now. And what's made all this possible is a couple of things. Harbor Freight. These things used to be a lot more expensive, and there's almost no reason not to do this. And it's a skill I think that anybody can use. You can use it on a lot of different stuff too. Anyway, not to belabor the point, but I would on this area, I would probably spend 15-20 minutes or whatever till I'm satisfied with it. Then what I would do is, by taking the same machine, get rid of some of the extra. It's starting to come up now. It's really not there yet, but it's coming. And depending on what level of quality you're looking for, now obviously not everybody wants to have this quality of finish, or they're willing to do the work, or I don't know what. I don't know, but I kind of like it. Now, what I look around for, I can see that I've kind of neglected this area here. So any spot, this looks pretty well done, or ready for the Carnauba wax. And if I have a dull spot, I could just sit here and hold this, because it's never going to leave swirling scratches. That's the one thing at least you get with an orbital piece of equipment. You're not going to wind up with, in the old days when we used electric drills and you go out there by the 55 Chevy and get the pad, and oh my God, when I think of the swirls and things I left on cars. Again, microfibers are available so cheap now, and I probably have 200-300 of them, and I try to keep them separate, wash them separate. When I have a load to do, I'll make a load and just throw them in. It's starting to come up. Again, this is all in the eye of the beholder anyway, but I'm hoping that I give you some idea of what you can do to pretty much any piece of paint work. And in this case, since I have the time today, and I no point doing it, no point belaboring this any longer, what I like to do is, if I can see my face in it, see my fingers, I can watch TV in it, whatever. You have your own private test, I'm sure. But to me, part of what I enjoy about whether it's custom motorcycles, cars, whatever is your fancy, airplanes, the model planes, when it's smooth and shiny like that, I just think it's something just a little bit nicer than when it's not like that. Just a little bit. And the final little thing here, because we're going to do this in a couple of days, I'll show this. The tank. Now we got the side that we didn't do yet, which is dull. But as you can kind of fade into it, and you can see we've started this. And what's going to happen, we are going to wind up with pretty soon. In fact, we get the helmet. The helmet's drying. Needs another day or so to dry. The fairings are drying. Where the hell's the other fairing? Oh, the other one's over there. See, we got stuff hanging all over the place here. But anyway, and the parts of it that are already done, I think that just came out really, really nice. And when we have our assembly day, maybe we'll have a Saturday assembly day. Everybody can wear their white gloves and we'll put this whole thing back together. And I still haven't made a decision on what color I want to make the wheels. But here's John's decals, the custom decals he made. Well, he made all the decals for this. But the finish, if nothing else on this motorcycle, the finish will be, I think, just really, really nice. It'll add a nice dimension to it. And the only problem is, like when it's a track day bike, I'm going to have to be careful loading it up and stuff now, where before we just shoved it into the back of the trailer. That may be a negative thing. But anyway, here's our little, again, our little test. And I tried to show it live without a camera cut. And I think that might be something you'd want to have, or add to your little arsenal of things you can do to your motorcycle or bicycle or whatever. And if you have any questions, my email address is windyu@AOL. And you can subscribe to the Windy U channel. There's a space between the Windy and the U, and you'll get the channel. And there's, I hope, some useful information out there. And I'm always glad to share it. And thanks for watching.